super interesting. The state of New York is doing a pilot where they're giving about 1,000 of these things called LEQ to seniors in New York. And LEQ is a thing, it's like Alexa. It looks like a phone on the side, and then it has this little robot thing with a light that comes on and off that kind of looks around, and it's designed as a digital companion. And it's designed to talk to it and to be able to, but a lot of seniors living at home. And one of the longest studies ever of humankind, it was an 80-year study, multiple researchers came up with the number one thing that they found for happiness and longevity. What do you think that was?
Companionship.
Relationships. Yep. In the end, who lived longer, who had better diabetes, who had better health, all of those were based on the value of their relationships.
So,
right?
So you're saying that my grandmother just added another 20 years to her life? With
Maybe,
her
absolutely.
companion.
Yeah, how many times do you see a couple where one of them dies and 6 weeks later the other one dies? They're just, that relationship is strong. And so they look at these seniors who are living alone, and they have a digital companion. And they I was watching testimony of one lady, and she says, hey, LAQ, I'm going to go walk my dog, right? And she comes back in, it realizes she's back in, and she says, and LAQ says, how was your walk with your dog? And plays games. And this is just the beginning. The people who write the processors say that AI is going to improve in the next.
That goes against all the other studies that have been out there about, it's not just having somebody have a conversation with, it's also the physical touch. And so I come home and now all I'm doing is talking. It just seems so sad.
I tell you though, AI is going to
not
improve in quality 1,000,000 times in the next 10 years, 1,000,000 times. What you're seeing now is going to be 1,000,000 times more powerful in 10 years. And if that person who has no other pieces can have somebody to relate to and who asks them questions about their life and who, and so as I think about IVR, and I think if I was the IVR vendor and thinking about where I was going as customer service, it's way more, imagine if that person can sit there and have an initial, that AI in an IVR can have an initial.
I agree with you from a customer service standpoint, then yeah, it would actually just take customer service to a whole nother level. Cause just like people are moving to the simplicity, they want the simplicity. And just like, I don't want to be in the long drive through at Chick-fil-A. I want to go ahead and or have my food ordered, and all I do is drive up and I drive off and not be stuck in the building, the line that wraps around the building.
That's driven by speed and convenience. That's our need to have things done quickly and ready.
I totally agree that AI is going to contribute to that, and more people are going to choose that simpler way. But I don't see it benefiting elderly who are looking for companionship.
The reality is it does.
That's
Well, big buzz is AI, Chat GPT, right? Everything AI. Is Therigy thinking, talking? Is there any kind of AI role in specialty pharmacy, or
just obsessed?
You guys have been talking about that in the back. What are we going to do with AI?
Well, we have our platform, and our platform, it's a web-based platform, right?
Okay.
So, you don't have to load in a server or anything. It's web-based. You can access it from work. You can access it from home. What I find in my role with engaging AI would be helping to set up something where our clients can support the virtual training that Deb and I are providing. People are going to always have questions, and those questions are targeted towards their specific situations. I don't think AI can address that the way it needs to be addressed,
right?
Specifically, So personally, I see the need for AI because there has to be some sustainable way for us to continue to train, especially when it comes with new employees. But I think that initial onboarding, when it comes to our clients, I think they still have to have, to some degree, that upfront personal touch.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if they start training in AI, even if they go to our resource site, watch the simulations, participate in the simulations, read the information, they're still going to have questions that AI cannot answer.
So a big struggle for us, we've got a lady that does the RX Local post and schedules those out, but our social media, like marketing game is non-existent. I despise social media.
Okay.
It's pulling teeth to put my own stuff on there. And
it's where everything's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was been an obstacle for us. And then I don't remember how I got started on it. It's been just a few weeks. I think Microsoft Edge came out and then put the AI inside of their browser.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there all the time. And then I started using it for research or whatever. And I was Googling uses for AI, and I found out that you could create art with it. I was like, can I apply this to my non-existent social media marketing? Because like the obstacle is we can't create the content.
Right.
So if a robot will create it for me, so be it. I was going to run with it for a while and see if anybody asked me how I was doing it. Because I wasn't telling my partners that I was using AIs for my social media right now.
Nice.
Gonna see how it just went.
And what did they say? They're like, oh.
Other at the moment, so if you want to go to our page and look, we started putting up these random jokes on a chalkboard once a week.
Okay.
The first one that went up, I had chatbot caption that.
Okay.
I mean, chatbot cracks me up with the cheesy dad jokes that it gives out.
Nice. I have a fan.
Oh, no.
It was a dad joke.
Oh, no.
So that, and then I started trying to use the Dolly version of it to generate art, because I was wondering if I could create like infographics from descriptions.
Interesting.
Instead of having to like go in and create that in software manually, I was wondering if I could just describe what I needed to a robot, create me an infographic and paste that.
Well, and you can have ChatGPT do that. And you also got bard.google.com now. Bard's free. But ChatGPT, what I did for Mother's Day is I said, hey, give me 10 ideas for images that represent Mother's Day. Yep. And it gave me 10 ideas. And then I figured out which one I liked, which was a whimsical scene of a mother and child flying a kite. And so I just plugged that into, the best one I found is for stuff like that, is Bing's Image Creator, which is also free right now. And just plug that in, whimsical view. It gives me four options. You get so many free credits, and then they rebuild themselves. But it was really good. So you can use AI to give you the ideas of what the images look like, and then with the images. But things you should also be doing is thinking about what your keywords are. So, hey, write this post. Make sure you include these keywords. Make sure you include concepts about why people buy. You know, one of the things that you really want to do with your social media posts is you want to try to, and one thing you can do is really, really entertain, but you want to provide them value. You know, one of the things that we had was, you know, Happy Good Earth Day. You know, you see all these posts where everybody, now there's going to be, 40 million people on It's Pizza Day, and figuring out how you can transform that into something that educates people, right? So if it's Pizza Day, tell them some really cool history about pizza in Iowa or pizza in your town. The first person to open a pizza place in our town was so-and-so. Or, hey, chime in with who's your favorite pizza in town. Do something because you want people to share your post or forward your post to other people, and they're not going to share them unless it provided them some piece of value, right? If they got value from it.
Right, like taking your pizza idea and supporting a local pizza business and going, for Pizza Day, we are working with this local business. We're bringing in pizza for the office. Kudos. This is our favorite. What's your favorite slice? And then they would feel the need to share it on their social media that for Pizza Day that this pharmacy brought in their business. And
we probably ought to reflect on our little monthly. We do a little monthly thing that says each day the kind of stuff we should do. And we probably ought to look at that to try to figure out some ideas for adding value. Right, not just saying, hey, it's pizza, but really thinking about, hey, are we doing things that add value? Because you're right. Now with AI, you guys should be able to have the time to do stuff. Now, you still need to give it the bones. You still need to be creative.
To a degree.
ChatGPT is just kind of flushing it out.
To a degree, because, it's, you look at in our day, we didn't have the internet. So we're doing research on encyclopedia, going to the library, or like if you had a friend who that was the house with the encyclopedias, you were like, that's awesome.
You know what I heard when you said, go ahead.
Yes, our day. Yeah. Yes. Now I'm slightly aging myself here.
I know, but what I heard when you said that is I heard remember the little sound the modem made when it connected? We need to interject that into the podcast, right? So then you started Atrium 24, and what's the goals of Atrium 24?
So Atrium 24, very specifically, I wanted something from our technology piece that was very specific. And I'm not there yet, but we're actually very close. We're launching a new piece of software within the next couple months. And I truly think it's going to revolutionize everything we do at Independent Pharmacy because, and I've wanted this for over a decade, we have so much data and we have so much technology that we all use on a daily basis. Too much, probably. We all have too many dashboards, too many logins, too many reports. There's never enough time in the day. So I think what kind of started me in this thought process about a decade ago was I don't like free text, and I don't like wasting time on just where is my time best spent? Or if I'm going to get on a phone call and talk to a pharmacy owner, I just want to be able to look at a quick dashboard about what's going on in their business and be able to understand exactly what I need to see as Nicolette, like what's going on in that pharmacy, so that I don't have to get on the phone and ask them all these questions that could have been answered by data, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
back to the not liking to ask questions.
There's a huge data component to consulting that I don't think has been tapped into at all yet. I mean, it seems like in the industry, and this is completely my opinion and how I feel about it, but it seems like in the pharmacy industry, you have these SaaS companies, so like straight software companies, dashboards, and you log in and you use the thing, right?
Right.
They might have customer service or whatever. And then you have consulting firms where it's completely free text, it's completely relationship based, it's completely a feeling, right? And you might be able to calculate some return on investment in consulting, or does it make you feel better? Does it make your life easier? Those kind of things. But those are so intangible to me, and I'm so data driven that I'm not comfortable with that. So my dream is to merge the two together and to be able to consult with data and software, and then to be able to actually use your data and software when you're consulting. And it's, for a decade, I've worked in, jobs where we had the data, but I still had a ton of questions.
Yeah. And pharmacy's hard.
It's very hard.
Of course, we play right. We want to give better data to the customers, but the hard part of the data of pharmacy is all your DIRs and GER and rebates that may or may not be what you expect them to be. So you start thinking about KPIs and things like that. It's really, really, everything's just very retrospective. It's very 3 months from now, I need to have a good accountant. Inventory management, cost of inventory of goods, not well tracked. It's weird, again, because of the rebates. It's really not what I paid for it, or something like that. So what kind of stuff, when you're looking at data, what kind of things are you looking at?
What's interesting to me is I always go back to the sales and marketing. So there's tons of software companies out there. And I mean, we use Pioneer in my own pharmacy, of course. And I love the software. I love how robust it is. You guys are constantly updating it, and the industry, what's going on. You have some really smart people in the industry who use your software and who provide a lot of feedback. So that part's good. I'm not trying to reinvent that part. I'm not trying to reinvent operations and workflow. I mean, even at Atrium, we work with a lot of companies who they are software companies, SaaS. They offer analytics and tools on all those things you mentioned about your inventory, about your workflow, about your DIR fees and your Medicare plan comparison selections and all that. stuff that's not my favorite. So what I like to focus on is sales and marketing and business growth. And then using data points to track that and to actually tell me, okay, if I'm going to, like you said, if I'm going to spend, as the pharmacy owner, if I'm going to go out every Tuesday and go visit and rep, just tell me what to do. And the data can actually tell you exactly what to do.
So you're more focused on the owner workflow, the workflow of being a business owner. So like you said, it's marketing, it's sales, and then it's operations.
So the data can tell you what type of doctors you need to talk to. Is that what, or what locations to go to? I guess where your patient zip codes are coming from and that kind of thing.
Yep. The data can tell you everything you need to know about sales and marketing, as far as who to visit, why, with what message, when, where, what's the optimal route to take, how do I keep track of it, what are some triggers and alerts and all those things. And those things are in our new software. But you can't just have that. You also have to have consulting. And so Atrium actually has a handful of pharma reps on staff now who consult for our pharmacy owners, because we'll have some of our clients call us when they're in the parking lot. And they're like, okay, I'm going into this dermatology office. I'm providing a lunch, and we have to teach them all the nuance about lunches, right? There's an art and a lot of nuance to providing lunch at a provider's office to make it as valuable as possible. So we help them, we coach them through all that, but they just kind of need a pep talk sometimes when they're in the parking lot. What am I saying? What am I asking? What am I doing? When am I going to follow up? So that's where I like the consulting piece to be. I don't want to spend our consulting time doing things that a data platform could have done for us. The consulting time has to be from the person to person, and more of like the relationships and like coaching, like pumping you up, like, okay, you're going to go in there, you're going to ask them, do they currently write compounds? Do they send anywhere? Do they like pharmacy? Do they have any problems? Just like you said, you're going to ask them questions.
A letter was forwarded to me from one of our members from a health system, from his local hospital. And it was clearly written by an EHR vendor. And the letter said, hey, pharmacy owner, we want you to give us your data because it's the right thing to do. And so we want you to give us permission to have access to your data. It was an EHR vendor that I was had a connection to, so I forwarded the letter to them and said, how can we make this bi-directional? So that's great, right. I suppose, that you want the pharmacy's data, but will the pharmacy have the medical data? And I haven't gotten a reply yet.
How long ago was that?
Too long as far as waiting on a reply. Yeah.
Well, and that's the common thing that we see with any type of integration partner that we begin to work with is they want to have a one-way conversation. They're not willing to share. They're like, give us your information, share with us. And then it's like, okay, well, can we have this too? And a lot of them have come back and like, no.
So Doug, this is where the scale matched with technology, I think, starts to become important for RedSail. So that individual independent pharmacy having that conversation with the EHR vendor is going to have a really difficult time. If RedSail's working with you, and NCPA as an example, and we have a technology standard that we could offer to the market, and we're able to say, with these 10,000 pharmacies, we're happy to do this with you, Mr. EHR vendor. We're happy to, but it's going to be bi-directional.
Right, it's got to be reciprocal.
Or we're going to do it with some other EHR vendor. The conversation has a bit of a different opportunity for the independent market, and I think that's kind of, if you go back to Jeff's theme of independent pharmacy's dead, long live independent pharmacy, and you've got to figure out how to act a little bit more like a network at times if you're going to influence some of these larger market players. I think this is a really good example of one.
And how to make it easy to work with independents. Again, that's a running theme that, hey, we may have to give up a little bit of our independence to gain greater authority and influence.
And an example of that is SureScripts has a med history data feed. And its primary purpose is ambulatory setting, that patient shows up, maybe they're unconscious, whatever. The doctor has access to that, what that patient's actually picked up, not what was prescribed, but what they're actually getting. You have pharmacists who don't want them to have the data. And our position in Pioneer, if you don't want to do that, don't be on Pioneer, right? We're not going to be the pharmacy system where the data is, I know you're afraid of people getting your data, but we're not going to be the pharmacy system where that data is not available in an ambulatory situation. The U.S. government is the payer of half of public health in the country. At some point, we're going to have to realize that that data is not ours. That data is public health data. Now, there's some data that's yours that shouldn't be out there, what you paid for your drugs and wholesale information like that. But the patient, more and more, we're going to have to push that's public data. And it ought to go both ways, right? The pharmacist ought to get that data just as much as the health system ought to get the data.
Well, and the government's pushing. So not just the current, so whichever party someone is affiliated with, it was the previous administration and the current administration are both pushing preventing information blocking.
Yep.
So requiring healthcare companies, health systems to provide a lot more information to consumers than what's been available before. But to that, the response that you sometimes hear from pharmacies, and I've definitely heard that throughout my career from pharmacies that say, no, I'm not going to give up my data. One of the reasons is because they feel like everyone's making money off their data, and you're right that it may not be that pharmacy's data, but some of it is. And as we've looked at it and actually done some pretty good investigation, depending on which data, at what part in the flow of data, different people own it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's the pharmacy and sometimes it's not. But the pushback that we hear from our members on data is that someone's making money off our data. How do you guys answer that? Because I'm sure you've heard that. I guarantee you've heard it. So what would you say to an independent who says, I'm not going to give up my data because it's valuable and I'm not getting any of the value from it?
Yeah, I hope you. Well, the first thing is that there may have been money in data a long time ago. There's not money in data today, at least not on an individual pharmacy basis. If you could find a place to market your data, you might make $10 a month. There's not a... the big value of your data is the value to public health and the value to that patient's, safety. And there are people making money on data out there, but they're providing intellectual property to it. They're analyzing it and data warehousing it, and they're the people like the IMSs of the world and IQVIA, where they're analyzing market trends and they're doing statistics. Other people have tried to compete with IQVIA. There's other companies that do that, but IQVIA does it really well. They do a really good job of how the statisticians work and provide and help estimate markets in pharmacy and things like that. So I think that's a thing they're going to have to. There's always that fear that somebody's making money on something that's mine, but the public health data, what prescriptions the patient's on, whether or not they put them up, it's not their data. It's public health's data.
I'll be a little bit more blunt. If you're that hypothetical independent pharmacist and that's going to be your view on data, you're not going to be an independent pharmacist very long.
That's right. What I was about to say.
At least not a profitable one. Can we run a business making a living on the data you've got to provide at IQVIA? You don't have a very good technology business very long. That's where you make your money. Now, where we can make our money with pharmacy data is by taking that data and trying to use it to create these clinical adherence programs, which generates revenue for pharmacy. And sure, we'll make some money on that too. I hope everybody wants us to, because that's how we're going to invest in the innovation to improve adherence. But the real money to be made on data is by using it to create really differentiated clinical or financial services with it that the pharmacies definitely benefit from. Mm-hmm. And if you do it right, they benefit a lot more. If you use the Spiriva example that Jeff did, those pharmacies in the pilot, yes, we needed to have access to their data to be able to implement those solutions into the workflow. And as a result, their revenue went up measurably. And you forego that if you want to be that conservative on the data side.
The scene I don't want is the doctor's office Patient walks in. The doctor has this computer in here. Oh, let's look up how you've been taking your medication. Oh, your information's not in here.
Yeah.
You must go to an independent pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the information about you that I need.
Right.
Maybe we should try somewhere else. It can't happen. Right?
It's pharmacists like Amina that are already interrupting that and having the conversation, because they won't share data with us. They want us to share data, but I mean, it's pharmacists like Amina who are already in there going, here's what I've done with your patient. Here's the data. They're taking their meds or they're not taking their meds. Let's help this patient. And we need to get more pharmacists out there like Amina, like Joe Moose, that are willing to walk into a doctor's office with that patient's data. I mean, even more so, we need to get an EHR that's willing to, have a mutual conversation and share data that they're with us, that they're willing to ask for.
I think your analogy, your example was the absolute right picture to paint. And when we became RedSail, and I learning the businesses, and Jeff kind of gave me his view on med history. Frankly, we're implementing that on the QS1 side now. I viewed it to almost be an ethical decision, right? So there's a lot of pharmacists, I'm sure, on the QS1 side, they're going to say, Kraig, we don't like the position you're taking on med history. And I analyzed it, looked at what Jeff's doing. What Jeff's doing in Pioneer is the right way and the right position to take. And so if you're a QS1 customer, we want you as a customer, but you're going to have to agree to the med history side.
So I guess the analogy I'm hearing you guys say is that the data, that's the raw data, is like crude oil. You can't have gasoline without it.
Right.
But until it's processed and refined, its value is very minimal.
Yep. Great example.
Heard about Robinhood, the trading platform?
Yeah.
Just a fascinating statistic there, that they got to 4 million users in 5 years.
Wow.
It took E-Trade 35 years to get to that number. And just in 2020, I think it was mid 2020, they actually exceeded Schwab in the number of trades, right? So, and why do I bring that up? I bring that up because if you look at how they did it, this was about obviously a product that people like. I don't use the product, but it was a product that people must like. But it was all about data and all about kind of thinking differently in the retail trading market. And they were selling into a market that had a lot of tailwind, right? There was a lot of movement towards retail investors. And as I think about how I translate that into the pharmacy business, you're right. We've got to work together in some ways. It doesn't mean you're giving up independence, but if there are things that you can do that are that you can't get independently, think about the data. This is all about data. The reason that Amazon literally just in June of this year exceeded Walmart in retail sales and are now literally not just e-commerce, but the biggest retailer in the world. They did it because they understood their customers better. They understood trends. They could leverage data in a way that others couldn't. So for me, when I look at the technology and frankly, what we can deliver as RedSail, it's the tools, but it's also the data and how that data translates into innovation as our market moves. That to me is a transformation of independent pharmacy. It's no longer independent pharmacy. Whatever the new name is, it's something different, but it has all the attributes and all the principles of independent pharmacy are still there, right? That persists.
I would agree. I think they have to get bigger or go home. But the person who's going to make them get bigger has to bring value to them that they don't get today. So a lot of people have made a lot of money off retail independent pharmacists by getting people together and then keeping all the money,
right.
collecting the data and then keeping all the money, or you name it. There's all kinds of things as you go through that have happened through the years. So there's a lot of cautious optimism out there. I think a lot of independents believe they have to band together. And as you talk together, we have a 4,000 group here, 4,000. 10 years ago, we had no big group. So at least they are starting to. But I do agree with you. I think you need a 10, 15,000 store group, but that group has to provide value to its members and to the stores, or else it won't work. And that's the one thing that people have to keep in mind as they try to build a group is, if I'm an independent, I'm independent for a reason. I'm a good business person. I know how to take care of my patients. Why should I join your group? What value is there for me that doesn't exist today? And I could not get that myself. If that happens, I think you'll see a lot of people flood to a group.
You know, Jeff, I keep thinking a lot of the work that we're doing now is trying to figure out how to take the 10,000 stores and help those 10,000 locations practice clinical pharmacy better, almost make it impossible not to practice clinical pharmacy better. And I think we're making some tremendous progress because then the drug companies will start bringing money back in and the payers will start bringing money back in. As I'm listening, one of the themes also, if you say, hey, I'm an independent pharmacy, what I love about that is I'm an entrepreneur. I control my own destiny. I can provide the service the way I want, but I'm getting beat up because I'm not large. I'm also getting beat up because the system's stacked because it knows the independents can't talk at scale.
Right.
And one of the themes keeps rattling through my brain is how do we give them a voice technologically at scale, right? And so that they can communicate real time at scale on really important things. And I haven't seen that solution out there, but so in my brain, I keep seeing these kind of network pipes that we add value. One's clinical, that we can totally change the way the different constituency groups view the independents, and we make it really easy to practice clinical services. But the other is we got to figure out how to kind of open up their voice more rapidly. And I think technology is the platform is just built to do it. And we just got to figure out how to harness it. It's kind of like it's not a well-formed thought in my brain yet. I see the picture, but that's one thing that all the groups can trust, that the independents can't talk as one right now.
Right.
And doing it once a year at NCPA isn't enough. They've got to be able to do it real time as they're running their business.
Well, and if you did it with one pharmacy software vendor, you solve most of those problems. I mean, medical billing is a perfect example. You know, Caterpillar employees can go get a flu shot at CVS. They can't go to an independent. I was at Cardinal Health. We could go get a flu shot at CVS. We couldn't go to independents. Why? Because nobody negotiated with the payer for the independents.
Right.
And why they didn't is because the payer wanted one billing.
Yeah, too hard to
They
do.
wanted one place to send stuff. They wanted one place to get. Well, you have all that. So you could start negotiating on behalf of all your members and say, we'll bill as one, however you want us to. We'll look like a chain.
Yep.
You know, CVS sends me all these claims because I'm Caterpillar. Well, Pioneer will send all of its independents claims to Caterpillar. So if you did it as a software vendor, you solve all those problems. You don't have to worry about the 20 different retail independent software vendors all trying to get one standard. You just do it yourself.
Yeah, this is just like Shopify. I don't know if you guys know much about Shopify, but we're much like that. We enable small businesses to be successful because we're doing that work, right? You've got to.
Right.
It's much easier for us to go work on some of those integrations and integrations with the payment systems, or in Shopify's case, there's a bunch of different ways you can get paid. The transaction systems and the credit cards and we have the tooling, we have the expertise that you just simply can't get. If I were to go and try to build a website on my own, a commerce website, I just couldn't do it as well as I could do it with, some of these third-party tools.
Yep.
I like that comment. I think that's a really important part of the future.
Yeah, I think the thing that you need to realize, it's funny being at Renlar, like Pioneer, and then going to Cardinal. The footprint you have in a pharmacy is so deep that you may not even understand it. When I was at Cardinal, I kept telling people, we have like a light footprint in a pharmacy. They're like, what are you talking about? We sell all their inventory. We're there every day. I'm like, yeah, but if our truck didn't show up, they would go get their drugs somewhere else. They'd go down the street. If their pharmacy system's down, they shut the door and turn the lights off.
Right.
So, I mean, it is so deep. You're in everything that they do. You can enable the future of retail independent pharmacy by, I mean, that group you're talking about banding together, you have all the wiring and all the plumbing to do that. You've just got to become a sales force for that group to the people who have money to pay them for services.
I would like to know even briefly about your history of Pioneer and the like and how it came about. So that would be, at least from my perspective, would be super informative.
Oh, just kind of the background of Pioneer?
Your history, I love learning from people. And so just the history of what got you from where you're at to where you are now.
Pioneer started with you.
Yeah. So out of college, degree in engineering, worked in the insurance industry, business interruption, that kind of solving problems. Moved to a focus in more software. Actually had a focus at one point where I was training people on software, helping develop companies on how to build software. And I was Morrison-Dixon at the time, who had a software company called New Tech Computer Systems, brought me in. They had tried to build a new pharmacy system twice and had just kind of flubbed it twice. And they were on their third attempt. And they were like, hey, can you come in and tell us how to do this? And after listening to me tell them how to do it, they finally said, hey, can you just do this? Can you just build it for us? And I'd been reading Good to Great and kind of all into myself, I guess, or all into victory or whatever. And it really said, I don't want to just build a pharmacy system. If y'all want to have one, if you're really putting your money behind having the best in the country and you're really going to just keep money pouring in to build the number one system and you really want to build something great, then I'm in and we'll do it. And they said yes to that. And we started building a pharmacy system. And that was 12 years ago, 14 years ago, 15
longer.
years ago.
I've been here 15 years, and you've got at least a little over a year on.
So now we're about 6,000 pharmacy systems and number one pharmacy system in the country by pretty much all measures. And got lucky that we got a lot of smart pharmacists on the platform fairly early and did a good job of listening and putting their ideas in there and trying to dig past how they wanted to do something to what they really were trying to do. And so it's been fun. And now we have a lot of really smart people on the platform and hoping we're making a difference.
You both have mentioned the book Good to Great as being influential in your careers. And, as I love that book too. And as I look back at it, it's gotten a little bit dated, but I think a lot of the fundamentals are still true. Jim Collins also wrote another book called Built to Last.
Great book too.
Also a great book. And in that book, it talks about the importance of, it gives some examples of companies that really were built around the personality of a leader. As I recall, I think like Jack Welch from General Electric was one of the examples where the company flourished under him. And when he left, it didn't. And so, in this podcast, we've talked a lot about, not to build you up too much, Jeff, but the importance of you to this transaction and to this transition and to the company. So, learning from Jim Collins' books, what's the plan? So that's great that Jeff's here. Jeff's a visionary, partnering with you, Kraig, on the strategic side. I like that comparison that you made. But what are you putting in place for this company to be there in, 5 years, 10 years from now? Jeff, one day you will retire, no time soon. But what are you putting in place? And as a corollary follow-up, private equity companies are not known for holding companies for a long time. So where do you see things going, both for a company really foundationally built around a visionary of one person with a great team and owned by private equity that, at some point they're going to flip the company at some point. I mean, that's what private equity firms do.
100% certainty, someday Francisco Partners will not own this company. We may be public. We may spin the company public. We may take it private with some management, but with 100% certainty, it's true. I think there's a couple things. One is actually very early on, Jeff and I were chatting about this, because when you put yourself in Francisco Partners' shoes, when we go to buy Pioneer and you're doing the due diligence, and I listened to a bunch of podcasts. I listened to the podcast he did with you, et cetera, et cetera. You go out in the marketplace, you talk to customers. Jeff's a very provocative personality in the space. As Francisco Partners, you go, what do we do if Jeff gets hit by a bus next week? Well, if Jeff gets hit by a bus next week, we got problems. But what we don't talk a lot about is the great team right behind Jeff. We probably should do a better job doing that. I think there are two things that I would highlight. And very early on, I actually asked Jeff that same question. Like I said, Jeff, 5 years from now, you may or may not want to be doing this. You may want to go do your next startup. I've got a responsibility to really think about that. And you've got a responsibility because you've built a great business, and you only get to do that a couple times in your life. And I know from talking to Jeff, because I think he thinks about the same thing I do. That's a really important, prideful thing. You want the company that you built to continue to perpetuate beyond your time with it. So we got to think about that. Number one, the area you mentioned very early on, where Jeff and I's relationship, which has been really terrific, and I also think he and I will debate a lot, which I think will be core to us being successful. If we're not, people should really worry. But one of the things, Jeff will talk a lot about people over process. And I think that's very true to how Jeff has built the company. I'm very much people and process. And I think part of the way you build the last as you continue to grow is you've got to do both, but you've got to have really great talent. And I think the answer to the question is someone who just came in kind of as the outsider observing and learning from the Pioneer business as we were trying to think about the investment is, talk to Jeff's leadership team. It isn't just Jeff. He's got a brilliant team that we've got to make sure we're developing and continuing to invest in. Would be my other answer. Jeff?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% there. So I have a great group that's been with me. Some of them the whole time. The girl over customer service was one of my students. She's a programmer who went on to get her MBA. She's amazing. So you just, they would not have purchased the company had it just been a Jeff Key show. So there is depth in it. There's depth that we want to continue to develop, and they've got a great group to help us do that. So super, super talented group that they have. And I think we're all going to school, and it's going to be exciting. To me, again, Doug, I know you had some hesitation in doing this because you didn't want this to be a powder puff piece, but I really appreciate you doing it. I know you're a busy guy. Again, thank you for all the work you did on the Supreme Court case. That's incredible. I know you do way more than that with lots of wins for independent pharmacy, and appreciate it. And I'm sincere about our relationship on steroids. I know we do a lot of stuff together, probably kicked off with, I think Marcia and I came to see you guys about 4 or 5 years ago and set up there, but we really cannot do this by ourselves. The whole concept of not doing this by ourselves is why we went with RedSail, and we can't do this without really working close together with the other people who really care about independent pharmacy.
Well, we, agree with that 100%. And I think this has been good. Both the podcast you guys did with me a couple months ago, and then this podcast for getting to know each other a little bit from, a personal level. I think that's been good. Kraig, it's a real pleasure to get to meet you, and just for both of you, to the extent I was able to find some background research on you, that helped me get to know you as a human. Yeah. Which is good. I think that's always good to know each other on a human level. So, yeah, we can't do it by ourselves, whether it's RedSail or NCPA. It's got to be any one of us is too small to do it ourselves. So,
if I can help you, just don't hesitate to call. We want to do this together.
you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more pharmacy professionals like you.